Hello, welcome back to Rejuvenated Women, Impeccable Health for High Performing Women. I'm your host, Dr. Alex Swenson Ridley, and I am joining you today from our house in San Diego, where we come a couple of times a year. But while we've been here, I'm here with a pack of teenage boys and my 8-year-old. I have teenage stepsons and several of their friends along, and I always joke that I work with women because I'm surrounded by testosterone all the time at my house. But as that aside, the inspiration for today's episode was actually around a conversation I had with one of said teenage boyfriends the other night. And he's this kid he's ripped, he's solid, he's a former wrestler, and he, was looking at, he's graduated, he took a year off, so he's, almost 19, but he had a scholarship for a full ride to wrestle at Cornell, and he actually ended up breaking his back in a four-wheeler accident last year, and so he decided not to go. And we were having this conversation about this, and he shared some things that I thought were really insightful for a 19-year-old kid, and stuff that has taken me a really long time to learn. And I know as high-performing women, some of us have been high-level athletes, myself included. Some of us maybe have not been, but we've still experienced some of the stuff that we're going to talk about. And that is, he had lived his life being defined by wrestling, right? Really good at it. He was invited to join the national team. He was invited to wrestle at Cornell and I think a couple other places. He's also super smart. And he made this decision not to do that in a really powerful way. And he shared with me, he's like, I could have gone and I could have done that. And I would have wrestled with a broken back and, hurt my body and done all this stuff. But I'd rather live. And I was like, that is really powerful, insightful stuff, for someone of your age. Because I know when I was that age, I somewhat not really wanting to made the decision to give up soccer, and I kept playing the violin and orchestra in college instead. But it was really hard for me, and it took years because it was such a part of my identity and who I was to let go of, like, I'm no longer the soccer star at the school, right? And not about that it was all about the fame, but like soccer was just it's a part of who I am. Like even today when I pick up a soccer ball, it feels like it's a part of me that it's like learning to ride a bike. That's just something that I never forget. But here's what I really wanted to get into, because at some point we have to recognize things that are like good for us and not good for us. And so many of us maybe go through life playing, we might be playing full out or playing the game of life on a big level, but we're playing injured. And that can be either physically or emotional injuries. And a lot of the women I work with are dealing with trauma that they've never dealt with, and maybe through the process that suddenly comes out and they're like, okay, I'm ready to deal with this now. Or we're dealing with an injury, like with my wrist in chiropractic. I finally retired at the end of May. We're now in early June, and it's like my body's just like, thank you. We really needed you to do this. There's things I'm going to miss. And, I also had to go through a transformational process around letting go of that part of my identity, because for the last 12 years, even longer from when I was in school, 14, I think, I've been a chiropractor. Like that's who I am. And so, I wanted to share this piece of this because we can power through, and there's something deeper here that my conversation with my son's friend Willie and my own experience has shown is there's this transformational process we have to be willing to go through to actually get past the injury, whether it's physical or emotional. And we have to be willing to shift something about our identity, especially with those things that are so ingrained in us, whether it's our career or something we've excelled at, or, a sport, or like some part of our past that has defined us up until this point, because we've never really dealt with the emotional fallout of that, I guess is the word I want to use. So, in what I wanted to share today, and I'm not going to talk very long because I'm still dealing with this COVID recovery thing and I start coughing, but there's transformation that needs to happen in order for us to fully move forward and play this game of life all out. And when we're not willing to go through that process to get there, and for some of us it's fairly quick. It's like, Willie shared, he's like, I just recognize this. He's also a dude. I think there's something with that as women. Like we get in our head and have all these stories and things and emotions that we have to deal with around big change, right? And he's just like, I don't want to be hurting my whole life. And I was like, That's very insightful. And, he could wallow in, not being able to go to Cornell and wrestle and have the D1 college career or even a national level career, or we could wallow in all these, like, how terrible it is for him. Or he could embrace, like, hey, I'm going to go to the state school that costs a lot less and it still has an amazing engineering program, and I'm not going to hurt my body, and I'm going to live my life. And he's in incredible shape. My son Fritz commented on his abs yesterday when we were at the pool, and so he's living life in a very positive way. And so part of it is finding that silver lining, the good in whatever hardship or difficulty or injury you're dealing with. And part of it is being able to go through the growth and go through the journaling and the processing and, like, whatever emotions you need to get out and whatever insights you need to have in order to shift your perspective to be able to move forward. So if you've been playing life a long time injured, and I've been guilty of this so many times, as a soccer player, as a chiropractor, as a emotionally injured, woman, like physically injured and emotionally, where I'll put my head in the sand and just try not to deal with it, and eventually it catches up, and at some point we have to, right? And we can either embrace that in a positive way and look for, like I said, that silver lining, or we can wallow and be in denial and be frustrated and not really be living our lives to our full capability and extent. So it's your choice, whichever one you want to do. By all means, if you recognize that you're someone who's been playing injured and needs some help, or need a kick in the pants, or need some accountability, or just need to talk about it, I'm here. I'm totally open to connecting and just listening. Like, there's no strings attached to that. I live to help other women transform, and this is part of that process. So you can always shoot me an email, dralex@emergentwomenih.com. I would love to hear from you. But that is what I wanted to share today. I hope this episode finds you well, and we will see you next week.